great to have you here in Washington, D.C. It's just so much energy in this room, and I want to start out by thanking CTIA just for your tremendous leadership and everyone that's a part of the organization. And everything that you're doing is critical to advancing American leadership in 5G, 6G, and beyond. And I want to make sure that we are leading the way. CTIA and its members understand the success of our nation's wireless future depends on the smart management of our spectrum resources, and I share that vision. Making spectrum available for commercial use is the key ingredient to our American technological leadership, our national security, beating China. So, we all know that these spectrum allocations are becoming more difficult with growing more and more demand. So part of this is making sure that as we move forward, that we solidify NTIA's role as the lead coordinator and manager of all spectrum, federal spectrum. And if we don't, we will jeopardize our national security, undermine our technological leadership, which ultimately threatens our ability to compete with China. In addition to restoring NTIA's role, our goal is to extend auction authority for a period of time that will give us the ability to identify new spectrum pipeline so American innovators can stay ahead in these advanced technologies. To compete with China, America must also use spectrum more efficiently. And we're working on reducing the regulatory red tape. We want to unleash connectivity across the United States to really take advantage of this opportunity, this time, to ensure that all Americans have access to reliable, affordable broadband. We're committed to devoting resources to securing our networks and removing Huawei and ZTE. There's a current $3 billion shortfall in funding for the carriers to fully remove this equipment from our networks. Last Congress, Ranking Member Frank Pallone and I worked together on a solution that would fund the shortfall and extend spectrum auction authority in the Spectrum Innovation Act, which passed the House last summer, but unfortunately hasn't yet become law. Back in March, the House passed another extension of auction authority. That one was until May 19th. It still hasn't been taken up by the Senate. And I just came from a committee hearing where we passed another bill out of subcommittee that will extend it to June 30th. So we are continuing to keep the pressure on and to highlight to colleagues and people on Capitol Hill the consequences of failing to reauthorize spectrum auction authority. Finding a path forward to make sure our networks are secure and to ensure that carriers can expand 5G across the United States is a top priority for energy and commerce. And that's why we're going to keep the pressure on to extend this auction authority. We've proved again and again that ensuring spectrum is available for commercial use is a bipartisan goal. It's essential for strengthening our national security, our global technological leadership. So I am hopeful that we will be able to come together, House and Senate, to pass a broader deal and ensure that long-term federal spectrum availability. As the demand for wireless technology grows, we also need to make sure that we are deploying and using our spectrum resources efficiently. And that's why we are leading on a package of bills to focus on permitting reform. Again, we just passed it this afternoon. We've had quite a debate all afternoon, but focusing on the need to address some of the permitting issues that are holding back deployment. We're calling it the American Broadband Deployment Act, which will streamline the permitting process and ensure that broadband is deployed faster and faster. We all know that there's been a record amount of resources allocated to broadband deployment. The Infrastructure and Jobs Act put more than $42 billion toward BEAD, the Broadband Equity and Access and Deployment, $1 billion for middle mile infrastructure deployment, $2 billion for deployment on tribal lands, and then $2 billion in the rural deployment through the Department of Agriculture. And these funds are just a small fraction of the funds that have been allocated in recent years. Unfortunately, in all this spending, we didn't, at the time, address the permitting that oftentimes causes delays and unfortunately may result in some of this money being wasted and leaving millions without access to broadband services. That's why I believe it is so important that we take action to address permitting reform. This is the way that we're going to help ensure that Americans get connected all across this country and that we continue to unleash our full potential. Without removing these barriers, I'm very concerned about taxpayer dollars being wasted and us failing to close the digital divide for our families and businesses in unserved communities. We also need to ensure proper oversight. That's our role in Congress, is to make sure that when money is appropriated, we are responsible for making sure that the agencies are allocating within the way that was intended. And part of that is to ensure that it is being deployed technology neutral. While fiber optic infrastructure may make sense and may be the best option in some communities, I can tell you in other areas, a lot of areas that I represent in Eastern Washington, they also are depending and understand the importance of wireless technologies, which are going to reach many of the most unserved and underserved. So we're going to keep focus on tech neutrality and working to ensure that these resources go to communities all across this country. U.S. leadership in next generation technology depends on our ability to develop these innovative telecommunications solutions. And this will ensure that resources are available for future uses not yet known. And our goal, our shared goal, is to maintain the United States reputation as being the best place to innovate, start a business, grow the economy. So just appreciate the opportunity to be with you. Appreciate your leadership. It matters. We want to hear from you on all of these issues, especially as the committee is continuing to work on the issues around spectrum and permitting reforms. We're doing the hard work. Plowing the hard ground necessary to legislate, and really proud of the work that we've already done, and we're committed to getting these bills ultimately onto the president's desk. And our door is always open as we share this goal of securing America's telecommunications leadership. So thank you again for all that you're doing. I look forward to working with you, and enjoy the rest of your time here in our nation's capital. Thank you.